Hello, everyone. Sorry about that. I forgot I was muted. Anyway, let's go ahead and continue the stream. So this is part 2 of the Titanic thing. We were doing this a few minutes ago, and then I had to leave the house. My sister thought her dog had somehow gotten out of the house or went to a different part of the house that she couldn't see. She had her security camera on because when my sister's at work, she uses a little camera to make sure that her dog is okay. And the dog was not where she normally is, so she was concerned. But the dog is okay. The dog was just in another room. But anyway, where... Oh, right, we were going to go down another level. And again, if you're watching this for the first time, I am just getting over being sick, so I do have a little bit of the sniffles, a little bit of a stuffed nose, but I'm alive. Alive and well. Oh, right, I gotta pull up the comment section. Come on. Where's my YouTube thing? Get out of that one. Get to this one. Hello, Mark. Hello, Lisa. Hello, Ozzy. Yeah, the dog is... She got into my sister's bedroom, and my sister keeps her bedroom shut when she's at work, so that way the dog is encouraged to stay in the living room where she can see her. But I guess maybe she forgot to close her bedroom door or something, but the dog was in there. But the dog's okay. She was just napping. But yeah. So this is more of the crew spaces where the what are they called again? The boiler room crew, the stokers and the firemen. This is where they would sleep and live. This was their like living space. And then I think we can continue to go down another level. Come on. These spiral staircases are cool, but often I get kind of stuck in them sometimes. Ozzy says potato room. I don't remember. I mean, we were at we are at the special dry foods hold earlier, which I guess that would have been the potato room. Oh, right, here we go. So this is a really cool little maze that I like. And you can kind of wander around this way. And at the end is gold and treasure. Pretty cool. All right. Back the way we came. And this is just one of the cargo holds on the ship. If you can imagine, there was a lot of cargo space. These old liners had lots of cargo space. They carried all kinds of things. All right. And I think if we go down again, this will take us to the boiler room areas. Yeah. Let's see if there's a... Yeah, this is a slightly faster way to go down. There we go. And it prevents you from feeling too dizzy and woozy. And then we just go down here, and it says wait in this side. Okay, because it's a British ship, so we got to go the opposite side of the walkway. Yeah, and now we're traveling underneath, I think, one of the coal bunkers. And on our way into one of the boiler rooms. And here are just some of the massive... Why is there's only 4 on this side? Oh, because this is the shorter... It's not as wide, this room is. But yeah. So these boilers are marine Scotch boilers. I forget. I think these are 18 feet in diameter. I forget the full amount. And then they each have, well, on each side are 3 furnaces, but the ones that are double-ended would have had another 3 on the other side. Pretty cool. I like how they did the furnaces. Now, Queen Mary had 3 double-ended Scotch boilers as well, but hers were slightly larger, I think 22 feet in diameter. And then it was large enough that she had 4 furnaces, but they burned number 6 bunker fuel oil. This says fire furnace number 2, but how could this be number 2 if this is the first room? I don't know. That's kind of where the limitations of Titanic are for me sometimes. I just don't know. How do I... Nope, that's the wrong one. Yeah, there we go. I was trying to figure out how to crouch. So this is the inside of one of the coal bunkers. I don't remember which one you can actually climb up. Definitely not this one. But there's one of them. If you find it, you can climb up. Oh, right, gotta stoop down. Yeah, you know, this ash and debris and stuff looks so real sometimes. And this room is better lit than than it used to be in previous versions of this game. So it's easier to see. Ozzy says alcohol room. That one I don't think is in this game. You'd have to go elsewhere to find that. Sorry, I'm trying to crouch down. I keep forgetting how to crouch. There we go. Okay, we're inside this one. You can see the scrape marks on the floor where the shovels would have scraped the steel deck to, you know, to get the coal off the floor. It's interesting. It's also probably smudges too. Yeah, from like feet. Yeah. Okay. So there's a whole bunch of places and things. It's like stuff you can see. I think if I take this ladder up here, we can go to kind of a cool spot, which you rarely get to see. I think, is it this way? There's a trick to getting into it, because you have to crouch or something. I know there's a way to get through here. Or am I looking at the wrong one? I don't know. There's an I'll take you to that place later. Because there's a second way to get in there, but I don't remember it at the moment. But yeah, you can climb up all through this stuff. And like this. And then through here. So this is one of the ventilation, this whole thing, excuse me, ventilates up to the top deck. And that's how, well, first of all, that's how you get a lot of fresh air in this room. Or at least attempt to. This relieves a lot of the heat in that room. It allows the ambient heat to go up through here. But beyond this bulkhead is the soot and gases and things from burning the coal. Shifts says, do you agree that it's sad that the SS United States is getting sunk? I do. Yes, I do agree that it is sad. But I also believe that it was inevitable. I don't really think there could have been anything that would have saved that ship. Because it had all its interiors removed in the 1990s, and there just really wasn't there wasn't any way to save it. It would have been so expensive to renovate it and put anything in it. I mean, it would have been like 10 times more expensive than just building, anything similar out of brick and mortar. And then you would have been extremely limited as to what you could build because you had to build it in the shape of the ship. And the ship was a very unique shape. It wasn't all flat decks or anything. It was, everything had shear and camber, and you had to account for that. It makes everything complicated. And the ship was technically a ship, so you had to run things by Solus standards unless you designated it as a building, which is difficult to do when you don't have a permanent place to keep it. I mean, there was just a whole lot of problems that amalgamated, and it just didn't help, made it so difficult. But I see a lot of people who, they get upset and they're like, oh, nobody cared about the SS United States. And that's not true, I mean, a lot of people cared about the SS United States. The problem was just that nobody was willing to put in that much money. I mean, it was a ungodly amount of money. It was almost $1 billion it would have required to get the ship in any kind of suitable shape. Oh, we already looked in there. Okay. We'll go up here. And yeah. And then you get people who, I think, they're very upset about what happened to the SS United States, and they take it out on the Queen Mary. They get upset. Oh, why did they save the Queen Mary? But they couldn't say, I mean, it wasn't the United States government that saved the Queen Mary. It was one city, and honestly, I really do believe that if the SS United States had retired before the Queen Mary, I think Long Beach would have purchased the SS United States instead of the Queen Mary, honestly. But at the time when Queen Mary retired, I mean, I don't think that they were even thinking the SS United States would retire at that point. So Long Beach just went for the Queen Mary, and that's how fate happened. But yeah, I encourage people, if you hear people who are upset and blame the Queen Mary for all of this, because they blame the Queen Mary, please defend her, because it really wasn't fair for SS United States to end up the way it did, but at the same time, it's not fair to blame the Queen Mary. It's not, and people, that part of that blame is, oh, well, the people of this country don't care about, their flagship, which is the way they word it. And again, that's not true. People do care. Whenever people find out about the SS United States, they suddenly go, oh my gosh, well, why aren't we saving that? So people do care. It's just that, I mean, the ungodly amount of money to make it happen, it just wasn't, nobody was willing to part ways with that. And then there was no guarantee that if you refurbish the SS United States that you will... Wait, what's down here? I don't remember this. Is it? Have I been down here before? What in the name of Mike? I don't know. These look like mail holds. I don't think I've been down here before. Two baths. Well, that's a shortcut, but I don't know if that, I don't know if in real life that door actually went to the baths. I don't think I've been down here. I knew it too. I knew that because there's times where I play this game, and I've done this so many times. I played this game so many times over the past year that I've had it, and I'm still finding new things. Stairs to F deck. Okay, but that doesn't describe where we just went. But yeah, that is new to me. I don't remember ever seeing that door open. But this isn't this part I remember. Oh, but I was gonna take you to that special room that I said, oh, I'll take you guys there later. Here we go. It's through this door. Show Snail says it's laundry. Okay. I wasn't sure. But we're in one of the ash rooms. So I'm going to try not to fall. But if you look very carefully, you can kind of see one of the boiler rooms down below. You can see the glow of the furnaces, but there's a steel cable here that is attached to an ash bucket, and this is an example of an ash bucket. And when they would clear out the furnaces to make room for more not room for more ash, but to make room for more coal, they would clear out the furnace and then put all the ash and spent coal into these buckets, and then they would lift them out. And this is for when they were in port, because you could not. So there's a mechanism in the boiler rooms, each one, where there's an ash pit, and you use the wheelbarrows, and you dump your ash and coal into that thing, and it's like a toilet. It has all this swirling water in it, and then that will eject all the ash and soot and spent coal out the side of the ship by pumping it. And but when you're in port, you couldn't do that. You weren't allowed to. So they had a room like this, I think one on each side of the ship, or maybe just one. I don't know about that, but there's at least one per room, per boiler room. And they carry up the ash here, and the ash is hauled away outside this hatch, and they have proper disposal of it. But the way that the crew got up here was through this ladder, and then there's another ladder that way. But I tried to climb up here through the ladder, but I couldn't get through that one. It's such a tight squeeze. But I knew that there was a way to do it, but I just couldn't. But anyway, that's what this door is. And it's funny because the Queen Mary has a room similar to this, 6 of them on the Queen Mary. But instead of for ash or soot or anything like that, it was specifically for loading oil. So because the Queen Mary was oil fired, not coal fired. So there was a room similar in size to this, and there would have been valves and hatches coming from the floor, and then they would have had a door like this where they would have carried a fuel line in and hooked it up to the plumbing, and then that would drop down below to the next deck, which was the top of the fuel tanks. And so this was a refueling room on Queen Mary, but on Titanic, it was an ash room. So it's very, very similar, the two ship designs. Sheridan says, "Oh wow, I love the in-depth tour of Titanic." Oh, you're welcome. Yeah, sometimes I just kind of, glide through the ship, and I don't really show too many specific things, but I thought it'd be fun. This is the men's restroom. These look like marble. It can't be marble. I mean, this would have been for stewards and stuff. I mean, maybe it really was marble. I don't know. But it's for stewards and things. And then I'm trying to think of any other kind of in-depth kind of places I could take you. I mean, I show this place all the time. This is where the second class stewards slept. So they all had to share a, what do they call it? Like a dormitory. This is what you would call a dormitory. I don't know that I could ever be a sailor. I need my privacy. And then sometimes they work 12, 14-hour shifts. I did that as a chef. I used to work like 12 or 14-hour shifts, but you know, doing that on a ship is even more difficult. So I don't know. I don't know that I could do it. But we're right next to the third class dining room, so I might as well go down there and give you guys a view. So there's that. Rapid Transit says there is many other videos Alex did on Titanic 401 in depth. It's worth seeing. Oh yeah, I do these live streams once every 2 to 3 months. Just for fun. I mean, honestly, just because I know a lot of people, they love Titanic. They'd love to play this game, but maybe their computers can't handle it or something. You know, it does take kind of a strong computer to be able to run this. Although it's much easier now than it used to be, because you know this in this version, they've really worked on the programming and made it run easier on less powerful computers. But nevertheless, I play it once in a while, so that way people can kind of appreciate it vicariously through me. Mark says it got warm today, 37. Oh wow. Is that Fahrenheit or Celsius? If it's Fahrenheit, that's pretty cold. If that's Celsius, that's pretty warm. Okay, so now we're gonna go to the main engine room. This is one of my favorite places on the ship because you can see the engines running. I love Titanic's engines. They're so cool. I mean, don't get me wrong, Queen Mary may be my favorite ship, but you can't really see her engines running because they're turbine engines. So everything is, you know, wrapped up in casings and stuff. You can't see nothing moving. But Titanic's engines are steam, what do you call them? Steam cylinder, steam piston engines. So you can see all the parts moving, and that's kind of what makes it so interesting. But I'm also going to talk about some similarities between Titanic's engine room and Queen Mary's. But the first thing that comes to mind, because I was just thinking about it right now, so this is what you would call a, what do you call it? Well, this is a crane for sure. But actually, I was going to talk about the Queen Mary's monorail cranes, but I just realized that this is not a monorail crane because there's 2 rails, and this one is geared. But is it electric? It doesn't appear to be electric. How in the world? Okay, well, that's interesting. See, this is what I'm saying. Like, I'm not an expert on Titanic or anything because I'm still learning stuff about it. But this appears to be gear driven for sure, but it does not appear to be electric. So that's interesting. But what I was going to talk about was Queen Mary's engine room. You go into her only remaining engine room, which is the aft engine room, and you will see things like that. There are these rails along the ceiling or around the mid areas of the engine room, and those are the monorail tracks for hand cranked monorail cranes. We might even see one somewhere in here. I mean, I'm starting to doubt it, but yeah, I don't see any tracks down here for that. But anyway, that kind of ruins what I was going to say because it's no longer applicable. I love watching these engines running. Can you imagine, you know, the greasers would have to come by and reach over these railings, and while this machinery that weighs, there are axles and things in this machinery that weigh more than a person. And they'd have to reach over with all this machinery moving and, touch it up with grease and oil and stuff like that. And, that's the kind of stuff that makes you lose a hand. Now, thankfully, some of this stuff didn't need to be touched. What's kind of cool is it doesn't quite show it here, but at the base of these tracks, this is the track here because this thing bounces up and down with the thing. But when it gets to the bottom, there would have been like a little basin at the bottom where there would have been a ton of grease. And what happens is every time this piston goes down, it touches the grease, and then just by sliding back up again, it brings the grease back up the track. So it's a self-greasing mechanism. And that's kind of one of those cool things about it. So if they wanted to refill it, there'd be like a little extra part of the tray on this side, and they would just kind of stoop down, pour a little bit of grease in that tray to keep it topped up. But that's one of the cool things. If you go to the SS Jeremiah O'Brien, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about because you'll see it. Every time the piston goes up and down, it touches the grease, and then as it goes up, it just spreads the grease along the track each time. So that's kind of one of the cool ways that they keep everything running. All this machinery would seize up if there was no grease running, keeping it running smoothly. So that to me I find pretty interesting. I love machinery. So, but this is another one of those places where you could lose a hand or an arm because there would have been grease cups and things on the tops of these. So you got these rods that come down and they hold on to these rings, but there would have been grease cups filled with lubrication. You fill the cups, and then as the machine turns and bounces and whatever, it slowly drips grease between the bearings and all that. So it keeps everything greased up. But nevertheless, you're reaching over with your hands, and if you get your arm stuck between these poles and, break it off. So, and then that is the turning gear at the very end. It served two purposes. That's the big white turning gear is what I'm talking about. They would turn the engine to get it started. They would turn the engine slowly with a small motor, and then these things would start. You apply steam into them, and then because they're already moving a little bit, it gets them going. And then you don't need that little motor anymore. You can disengage it from that gear. But anyway, that gear, the second job it serves is kind of like a flywheel. A flywheel is simply a wheel attached to an assembly like this, gives it extra weight and momentum. So as it turns, it keeps everything running smoothly. Without a flywheel, these engines might kind of be a bit clunky. You'd feel the shudder as each and every one kind of went up and down. But because that's because there's less momentum turning the axle. So when you apply a big gear like that, something really heavy, it helps keep everything rolling smoothly. It's hard to describe. I guess it's like the difference between like driving a car that is literally made out of something really lightweight, like feathers or something, and the engine, you would feel it really kick in every time you hit the gas. But because a car is so heavy, when you do start pressing on the gas, it slowly rolls forward. So that's the difference. You have an engine on a car made of feathers, and you'll really, boom, get going. But have a heavy car made of steel and all kinds of materials, and it slowly starts rolling forward as you hit the gas. So it's the same kind of deal. That's what flywheels were for. And so yeah, of course, these engines, they're attached to the propeller shafts. They're bolted onto the propeller shafts. So the propellers also provide a little bit of resistance and stuff like that. But if they ever disengaged from the propeller shaft to do testing on the engines, they still need a flywheel. So that's why it's there. But yeah, serve two purposes. That's something that I know about. And Queen Mary's engines had flywheels as well. in the form of turning gears. Let's see how far we can go. Oh, there's a chain here, so I can't go too far. They do limit how much you can see. All right. There's all kinds of oil pumps and things like that back here. You can actually see them. It's a series of steam engines, steam-powered pumps and all that. And I'm sure that's for pumping like certain kinds of grease and stuff, because certain machinery is so heavy and so powerful that just dropping some grease into it just isn't enough. You need to literally like machine pump grease into certain parts of machinery. So that's what the pumps are for. All right. And then I think I show this every time, but I'll just be very brief. This is the engineer officers mess hall where they could eat and stuff. And then there's King George V. He is one of recently what do you call it? Had recently been crowned. Yeah, there we go. I want to say coronation, but that's the ceremony. He was recently crowned king when Titanic went into service. And I'm a bit of a fan of King George V simply because his wife was Queen Mary. I find her fascinating. I mean, you know, she's probably not one of the most pleasant royals that ever existed. I bet that probably would go to you know, Prince William and Princess Kate. They're probably some of the most pleasant royals that ever existed. But yeah, Queen Mary, she has quite a story to her, and I really respect that story, as well as Queen Elizabeth II. What was that? Sounded like something fell. Anyway, yeah, Queen Elizabeth II is my favorite monarch of Great Britain. But yeah, there's a certain respect I have for Queen Mary and King George V. Although not to imply that I think Queen Mary was a monarch. She wasn't. King George V was, but she was his consort. So sorry, my brain is still fuzzy. You know, I'm just barely getting over being sick for a whole week. I'm feeling much better, but my brain is still foggy. So now we are in. These are second class spaces. Sometimes it's difficult to tell the difference. Well, no, this is third class. So maybe this bulkhead separated second class. No, this is third class too, because the third class entrance is over here. So then wait, I'm lost. Hold on, let me zoom over here. Okay, yeah, this is the third class entrance right here. And then beyond these doors is first class, bottom of the stairwell. But I could have sworn some of this was second class. I don't think it is. Not on this side, at least, because when we go all the way over here, we are still in third class. And this is one of the third class pantries. So this is where the third class room stewards and stuff would have you know, things like tea and drinks ready to serve their guests. You know, you may have been in third class, but it wasn't quite like it was shown in the movie Titanic. They weren't literally people that were, you know, forced to stay down here with gates and whatever. And you know, there was a certain amount of luxury. You did have a steward that came by and, you know, refilled your water glasses and, you know, gave you tea and drinks or whatever you needed. And you had you know, your room was pretty simple like this, but it was still considered nice for the time. Titanic did have really nice third class for its time, although not very private. There were no ceilings in each of the third class rooms. They often shared ceilings with the room next to them. As you can see, there's a visible gap. And the reason why was because of airflow. Instead of putting ventilation in every single cabin, because there was a lot of them, they would just, ventilate this area really, really well, the hallways and things, and then just as the air circulated around the cabins and stuff, that's how the air would get moved. So that's interesting. But on Queen Mary, every third class cabin had its own ventilation. So you didn't have to share ceilings necessarily. Like there was no gaps above where like someone could like toss a note over or something. not that that's what they would do, but yeah. So now we're at the bottom of the third class staircase, and my game just got slower, probably because there's something big above that has loaded in. But yeah, so these are some of that. So let's go ahead and climb up. It's always staircases that slow down the computer. But yeah, there'd be another level. So you go back here and, bunch of cabins and things. And then you climb up another level. And you find yourself in the more social areas of third class. So on this side, we have the third class main lounge. They had a different name for this. It was like a multi-purpose room, but I forget off the top of my head what the name of this room was. But it was the third class main lounge, and you could sit around, play games. This was a family-friendly room. There was piano for music and all of that. And gosh, I love the lighting in this game. It looks so real. I mean, look at this. It's just like sunlight beaming through. Looks so nice. They did such a wonderful job with this. And the cool thing is that this is considered old graphics according to the people who made this. Their newer version that they're working on is supposedly much better than this. So, I mean, that's insane. But even now in 2025, this still looks great. Anyway, this is the smoking room, men only. And this is the third class smoking room. This is where they smoked. The room does have kind of a smoky haze to it, and what I really like is they have even this animation of a cigar, just, smoking away, which I really like. Nice touch. I mean, I know there's nobody here on this ship right now, but it's a nice touch. It adds a little bit of kinetic movement and stuff, so really neat. And they got spittoons at almost every table for them to spit out their tobacco. And yeah, there's another look. What do you call it? This is like where they would promenade. So, for those that don't know, promenade is almost like a verb, actually. I think it's an adverb. I don't know. I'm not good at language. But but to promenade means to stroll, to relax, walk around somewhere. So that's why you got places on ships called promenades, or even sometimes you might hear of like a boardwalk being called a promenade. But those are places in which people would promenade. So it is a descriptive word. And that's they could do that here. They could climb up here. Actually, if I was a passenger, this wouldn't be a place that I would promenade. There's no flow to it. You just kind of have to avoid the machinery. But kind of up here you could. So if we go up here, this is the poop deck. Although I'm not sure that's the actual name for this deck on Titanic, but on any ship, this would be considered the poop deck. But there is kind of a way that you could kind of walk around in circles just by following the outer edges of this space. So this would be considered their promenade. And Yeah, I like the flag waving and all that. There's a lot of really good detail here. I really love this. And we can actually get a better view of this by going up here. This is the docking bridge. A lot of ships had docking bridges. This is where they could give steering commands to the, what do you call it? To the bridge, the actual bridge of the forward end of the ship. And they could also receive commands here as well, because they could tell the tugboats, to let go, to grab on, to push or pull or whatever. And then they also had an extra helm back here in case the captain says, well, we can't see anything from over here, so you guys down at the docking bridge will need to figure it out, or I'm sure they didn't say it like that, but they could essentially control the steering of the ship from back here as well during docking procedures. And it also served, as of course, anywhere you have a helm that controls the steering of the ship is also an auxiliary place where you could control the steering of the ship in case, I don't know, any of the other helms around the ship are not functioning. Because on the bridge of the ship, let's just say that both of their helms were completely non-functional for some reason, then this is another one of those places that they could go in an emergency to steer the ship. So that's another purpose of it. Queen Mary had 5 different helms all over the ship. One on the docking bridge, one down in the steering room, and then they had, technically 3 different helms on the bridge itself. So interesting way to control the steering of the ship. Lots of redundancy. All right, so that was 3rd class. 2nd class is over here. We could start down here. Yeah. This is one of those shortcuts that it literally takes us to the other side of the door. So it's not like we're transported across some other part of the ship. In this shortcut literally takes us to the other side of the door. So see, we were just out there. But yeah, there are some shortcuts in this game where you get up to a door and it takes you to the other side of the ship or something. But yeah, this is inside the aft 2nd class staircase. I love the streams of sunlight. In fact, you can't see it too well in this live stream, but sometimes you look at a certain angle in the sunlight and you can even see dust particles going through the light. It's really cool. Yeah, so I think that, yeah, here we go. This is the 2nd class. This is technically called the 2nd class library, but it was also technically a multi-purpose room. If anything, I often say that this wasn't so much a library as it was just a lounge, honestly, because the only books is in this one bookcase. That's hardly a library. But yeah, there were places to play games and stuff, and there was also writing desks, so you could write out your what do you call them? Your like a telegram to have it set off. Sent off, not set off. You don't set off a telegram, you send it off. You can see people have glasses of wine and things. There's chess boards set up so people could play. All kinds of really cool stuff. There's a nice little social area for 2nd class. And you hardly see much about 2nd class online when you talk about Titanic. It's just not something that really shows up a lot. But this is one of my favorite 2nd class rooms because of the paneling on the walls. I really love wood paneling. When it's done right, it looks really nice. When I talk about wood paneling a lot, because, of course, I'm a fan of Queen Mary, and Queen Mary's nothing but wood paneling, people, when they hear wood paneling, they think of those old houses in the 70s that had those cheap walnut veneer panels that were vertical slats that went around there. I had my grandfather had a house that had that, and yeah, it is ugly. But when you think about wood paneling in the terms of what it was originally, what wood paneling originally was, with the veneers and everything, and these beautiful designs, This is wood paneling, folks. This is what it really should look like. And it's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Look at this. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if, I mean, these could be carvings. It's hard to tell because it's a game, but that could have also been wood inlay. The idea is that they carve out the shape of it. You know, they do, they use a marquetry technique to create light areas and dark areas, and then they inlay that into the paneling. So that could be wood inlay. You know, but yeah, that's wood marquetry. So anyway, cool thing. And then we got the carpet here. If you zoom in enough, you can even see the pile of the carpet. Pretty neat. And we make our way to the forward second class staircase, where there's also a lift. So they only had one lift in second class. And you go in and there's a little bench for the passengers to sit. Not that it's a long ride. And then the attendant would stand about right here, and they would have access to the lift mechanism. And you simply just tell the guy, you know, what deck you're going for, and he'll take you there. And I'm sure there would have been a call button or something, unless back then yeah, there we go. So that white button is a call button for the attendant. But you see, we're so used to, in today's day and age, there's a button for every level or something. Particularly on the inside of a lift, there would be like a panel with a whole bunch of buttons that tell you what level you're going. But they didn't have that back then. It was just a single button to say, "Hey, I need a ride," and then the attendant would bring the lift to your level, and then you tell him where you want to go. And even on Queen Mary, they did that. That's how it worked on Queen Mary. I think there were, yeah, no, I'm because there's two original passenger elevators that you can still use on the Queen Mary out of like the 7 passenger elevators they used to have. There are 2 left, and inside the car, that's what they call it, a car. Inside the car is a panel with buttons, but that wasn't originally how it was. There was an attendant in there who operated the lift. But in any case, I don't know if we should go up or down. Do you guys want to go up to the surface, or do you want to go down again to see more of second class? I'll read some of your comments here. Beans or no beans? What in the world? What's people talking about? Yeah, all right. Well, okay. People aren't really talking too much, but okay. Turbo McAwesome says second class. Yes, we're in second class, but my question is, should we go up to the surface or should we go down? I'm trying to give you guys I'll talk about something real quick while you guys make up your mind. So this is another really cool similarity with the Queen Mary. Because Queen Mary has what we're looking at right here on the screen. Queen Mary has this as well. This is an enclosed promenade for second class, and it wraps around. This is the inside here is the library/lounge for second class, and there's even a door that goes out onto the outdoor portion of the promenade, and they could mingle with third class down there. Not that they wanted to, but they could, essentially. Or they could go up to the surface of the ship where there's a promenade up there. But in any case, Queen Mary has this. It just doesn't look like this anymore. But there is a passage that goes from one side to the other. And today, if you're on the Queen Mary and you're like, I want to know where that is, it's on M deck aft over by the Britannia Salon. And the idea is now it's all part of one big room. They've covered up the bare steel with wood paneling and all that kind of, or not wood, but ceilings and wood paneling on the sides. But it used to look just like this, literally just like this, with an outdoor portion, you know, big windows and stuff. And then where there were doorways like these, now they have huge oval cutouts. So it creates a big opening. And so if you see that now today, Queen Mary has that. And even the original, on Queen Mary, it was teak wood decks, are still there. Still there. You can walk on them. So yeah, pretty neat little feature, I think, of the Queen Mary and Titanic. A very, very interesting similarity. All right, so who wants to go? Okay, I got 2 votes for up, 2 votes for down. Oh man, okay, I'll need to be the tiebreaker. All right, let's go down, and then we'll go back up at the end. All right, so when we go down to the next level, we're on D deck, and immediately you'll notice the ceilings are much higher. This is on D deck on Titanic. This was where most of their, their restaurant spaces and public spaces were on Titanic. And so therefore this deck has much higher ceilings. But I like standing over here because you can get a view of like 65% of the room from here. So you can see. And all the chairs are directly attached to the floor, but they do swivel. They swivel out so that way you can sit down in them and then swivel yourself into your seat. Yeah. That's really cool. They have pineapples on every table. Pineapples would have been a luxury fruit back then because they were particularly expensive. Today they're still expensive, but I mean, not nearly as much as they were back then. The mirrors in this game are so weird. Yeah, so here's the other side of the room. Really neat. Sometimes this bowl of fruit from a distance looks so real. So yeah. And then we can go down again. And excuse me. We are on E deck. And the third class purser's office is here. You can be here and, hey, I need assistance. And the entrance to the third class purser's office is back here. The purser slept in this room too. So they would just close everything up at the end of the day, and this was their living quarters. Some cabins here. This way leads to more cabins, I think, but yeah, it just says head aft, but I don't know exactly where that takes me. And then this is one of the doors that lead into the third class. As you can see, they kept it closed because, I mean, obviously the classes didn't want to mix very much. But yeah, and then the staircase would have continued down into more second class cabins. So now let's go all the way up to the surface of the ship, where we can, get a view of the surrounding landscape, or waterscape, I should say. Right, okay, so up, up, up. All right, so this is a space we haven't been yet, but it's right above the library area, and this is the second class smoking room, which, I think this smoking room is just one of the most beautiful rooms on the ship. I wish you could see it at night. They had a night mode a long time ago for this game, and it'll come back eventually. But in the night mode, oh man, this room looks beautiful. I mean, it is just glowing, you know, a beautiful gold color. But it's really neat to see this room. And lots of green. I'm not a fan of green, but back then people were. Green was green for a long time. People's obsession. I don't know why. Maybe it's some kind of trend or something started by Queen Victoria. She often started a lot of trends. But green definitely was people's favorite. And there's a slight outdoor portion to this area. So this is the top of the aft second class staircase. You can even see the bottom of the mast here. But yeah. And you can kind of, well, you can't go around. But you can see the poop deck over there, and you can see the third class promenade space down here. But yeah, second class could come up here to get fresh air, because they had that enclosed promenade below, but they also had this. And you know, there's deck chairs and everything for them to relax. And an interesting thing, let me actually go back this way to show you. When you go up another level, that's first class, the next level up. So second class could not go up there. There was no way. But if you follow the forward second class staircase, it'll take you up to the top level. The boat deck. Oh, I'm yawning. I'm just so suddenly so sleepy. Anyway, yeah, the boat deck is the top deck, and we'll go there in a second. But anyway, so yeah, that's the top of the aft second class staircase. We go through here to the other side. And what's interesting is you will notice that there are stairs and ladders and things that go around. That's because if you're in a higher class, you can mingle with a lower class. It wasn't necessarily something you always wanted to do, but it could be done. So second class, if they wanted to, they could go down here and mingle with the third class, but third class could not come up and mingle with the second class. That's just how it worked. So, all right. Now, if we go this way and we enter through here and we go up the staircase again, we have to skip a level. So here's the level we're skipping up here. This is A deck. And you see there's nothing. We have to skip it because this is only a first class space. And beyond this glass panel is actually a ventilation room. There's fans in there for pumping air into the ship. But anyway, now we go up that to the next level up, and we are on the boat deck, finally. And this is really where second class could promenade. This is really a wraparound space that they could, you know, get their steps in and walk around and stretch their legs, you know. Gosh, this is beautiful. The blue and the sky, and my goodness. Absolutely beautiful. So they could come up this way, and then I think there's a way to get around. Let me see. Gosh, this looks so real. This looks photorealistic right here. Doesn't look like a game. At least not on my TV. Anyway, so yeah. So if they want, so they had to stop here. You can see there's a gate. It says, notice, no second class passengers are allowed forward of this. See? So they would wrap around this way and then to get to the other side. And that's how they promenaded. That's how they walked around and got their steps in. And then they could go up here too. So they had this area up here. Now I wonder, do these rooms sometimes you can, I don't know. Is this one of the, no. I saw windows, and immediately I thought, well, there must be something in there. Oh, but this is the dog kennel. You can't see much. Oh, now you can. Okay. So, you can see the crates. It looks like there's 3, 6, 9, 12. There's 12, 12 crates that we can see here for the dogs, and cats would have been stored here too. And I'm sure any other animal that that someone brought on board. But yeah, that's the dog kennel. Even first-class dogs are there. And when the dogs went for a walk, I mean, I know that they showed the dogs going for a walk on the poop deck. I don't think they did. I don't think, you know, in the movie you see the dogs walking on the poop deck. That's way over there. But if you really think about it, you would have had to get the dogs over there. You know, it would have been quite a walk. I mean, they would have had to take like the, you know, one of these fancy staircases, and nobody would have wanted to see a bunch of dogs walking down the staircases. This is where what am I trying to say? This is where they would have walked the dogs. This area, this, you know, up here. And yeah, the dogs did pee and poop on this area, and they'd have to clean it up afterwards. But it's just like that for Queen Mary, too. There was an open deck just like this, where they would have allowed dogs to walk and do their business and stuff. But yeah. And I'm pretty sure, too, that maybe the owners of the dogs could come up here on occasion to visit with their little pals. All right. Now let's move on to first class. So, before we even get to first class, the first class is beyond that fence over there. This is the engineer's promenade. So, I just press F to get into the engineer's promenade, and there we go. We just suddenly appear on the other side of the fence. But this is where engineers could come up and get air and, you know, and just, you know, just get some air, honestly. I mean, you can kind of see the top of the, is that the engine room hatch? I'm pretty sure, because, yeah, it's between the last funnels. But yeah, this is where they would get air and just relax. I mean, for the most part, they were almost always down below decks where there was no sunlight or fresh air or anything. So they were stuck down here. But, and just to imagine, on the other side of this fence, first class. So I always find that funny. The juxtaposition of, you know, being in a fancy first class, and then the only thing separating you from, you know, the poor people working down below and, you know, shoveling coal and all of that is just that little fence. But yeah. All right. So people tell me, oh, Titanic doesn't have cowl vents. Well, then what do you call these? People always tell me that. They're like, because they look at Queen Mary and they go, oh, Queen Mary looks so ugly with all those cowl vents and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, Titanic had them too. Titanic had them all over the upper surfaces of the ship. Gosh, I never say boat. I don't know why I suddenly said it. But, yeah, cowl vents everywhere. All over Titanic. I mean, my goodness. And you got squirrel cage fan vents too. That's what some of these things are. That's you know, like that pushes air out of the ship. One of those. Oh, here's one here. So this one doesn't suck air in. I'm pretty sure this one pushes air out. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it does. What does it say? Yeah. Doesn't say whether it does or doesn't, but you know, anyway, some of the vents push air out of the ship. Some of the vents push air into the ship. That's how it's done. Okay, so we climb up here and we can get to the compass platform. Passengers are not allowed. So they have a compass platform because this is technically one of the more stable parts of the ship. And they need these compasses for navigation when other navigation instruments are offline. They will rely on the stars and on the compasses. And so because ships have a tendency to roll and rock about, they need a very still compass. And this is one of the areas in the ship where you can get the most stability. This is the center of the ship. You know, it doesn't matter which way it rolls or pitches, this part is the most stable part. So they can get a more accurate reading from here. And trying to think. Queen Mary did not have this because Queen Mary had gyroscopic compasses, which means there are gyroscopes on the compass that keep them level at all times. So, yeah. Now we go a little bit forward, and what's through here? Oh, this is the gymnasium. Let's see. Just reading some rapid transit. Says, my dream is to see Queen Victoria burial place in Frogmore someday. Interesting. Okay. Turbo McAwesome says, I think second class is actually much nicer. Not nearly as overwrought as first class. Yeah. I could see that. Turbo McAwesome also says Mauritania is the undisputed queen of Calvins. Yeah, that's true. That's true. All right, so this is the first class gymnasium. What I like about these old gymnasiums, and I feel like I say this every time I'm in here, but they have very practical ways of exercising. You know, you got your bikes, which, I mean, we still have something like this today, so that's not a big difference. But you got like a rowing machine, so, you know, that's something practical. You build up your rowing muscles by using this. You know, you got a whole bunch of things. You got your electric horse here, and your electric camels over here. You know, they got this thing, you know, I don't know, put your face in there and it squeezes it like a pimple. I have no idea. But, you know, they have very practical equipment here. This, I think, is a massager. Yeah, because there's the little wheels. The wheels that run up and down your back and crack all your vertebrae like they're eggshells. Yeah, so they got very practical stuff here. And this is... that you grab onto these things and it's like pulling weights. So we still got those today. But what I do like is they got things like electric camels and electric horse. You know, and it exercises muscles in your body that allows you to, to not only, get your exercise in, but you practice for other practical things, especially this rowing thing. It's a very practical way. So I don't know. I'm not a big fan of things like pulling weights and whatever. Like, I don't know. It's just something kind of boring about it. But and they got one of these things. Why can't I never remember what these things are called? I never remember. But you punch that, and it's very, very practical. I like it. But today people are, a lot of people are about either just doing regular cardio, which is good. You got your what do you call it? The thing you walk on, the treadmill. You got your treadmill, but then you got people who are just really into building muscle, and so they're definitely doing a lot of weight training and stuff, and that can be That can be rather intense for me. I'm not into weights and all that. And then there's the painting that always scares me because when I'm looking at it from a distance, this tree looks like a person just standing in the background. I'll show you. So usually if I'm standing way over here and I'm like looking this way, it's just in the corner of my eye, that tree on that painting just looks like a person just standing there. I don't know. It always freaks me out. I don't know. It's just something that happens. But and then something else that kind of totally, I don't know if you can see it from here, but the heaters put off heat waves. And those heat waves sometimes just look so creepy when you forget that they're there. Anyway, this is one of the more surprising things I didn't know about Titanic when I first got the first version of this game a couple years back. I didn't know that Titanic had 2 grand staircases. Of course, the aft grand staircase is the taller of the 2, I think. And then, but yeah, anyway, Titanic had 2 grand staircases. I didn't know that because I remember using it as a focal point for how to get around the ship. Or am I forward? I'm forward on the ship. Okay. See, I don't know my way around because over here is how you get to the bridge. Here's the top of the first class lift shaft. So you got the 3 motors for running the lifts. All right, let's go in through here. So I was just reading comments. Sometimes people have some interesting fun facts for me. Wait, where am I? Oh, okay. I got so... Okay, that was weird. All right. All right, we are in the officers' quarters area of the boat deck. But this is also the Marconi wireless room. So this is where they did all their, their contacting of ship-to-shore contact and whatever. And also speaking with other ships. They got a little skylight for air and light. And then the 2 guys that operated the Marconi machine would sleep here in this room. And then they have another room over here for the equipment that powers the Marconi device, including a backup generator or an amplifier. I think this is an amplifying generator, actually, because a certain current comes in, and then this thing, I think, bumps it up a lot more. Yeah, it's complicated. And then there's batteries. So these things with wooden tops, those are batteries. Yeah. And you got sand for fires. You got buckets of sand. So if a fire started, you smother the fire with sand. And the reason why they got that is because the amount of electricity they're dealing with for this Marconi device. I mean, this is no walkie-talkie, you guys. This is like some serious, powerful machinery to send messages out over the Atlantic. So, I mean, this stuff, when the electricity arcs, it arcs. Like, my goodness. So, yeah, you got to be ready for a fire. These gold strips along the floor and ceiling, this is for the expansion joint. This allowed the ship to bend without actually breaking, because sometimes the ships go over huge waves and swells, and as they crest those waves and swells, the ship needs to be able to bend to go with it. So that's what the expansion joint is for. And now we're heading over to the bridge. And we are in the wheelhouse of the bridge. The wheelhouse was used when they were out at sea, but when they came closer to shore, they would use this area because, you know, they could see better out the windows. But this area was not technically protected from the weather, which is why they had a wheelhouse. So yeah, and they had two helms. This is a telemotor helm. Queen Mary also had a telemotor helm as well. Well, she had two actually. So yeah, this is the actual telemotor machine. So I guess you could really say there was one telemotor back here, but both of the helms were attached to it. So you see, this helm is the one they used out at sea, and there's a metal bar that connects it to the telemotor machine, and then there's a bar that runs up to this gearbox and goes out that room to the other gearbox and then to that helm. So technically, how do I get it? Oh. So technically, this is not a telemotor here. This is just a, you know, an axle system. But yeah, they had one telemotor. But Queen Mary had two telemotor helms, two completely separate machines on the bridge. So let's see here. Chris says, on that night, they really had to crank up the power to the Marconi device, especially during when Titanic started losing power. Oh, yeah, I bet. I mean, they were trying to send signals as far as they could. The more power you put into it, the more likely chance your signals got out. And here's some of that rigging I was showing you in the first live stream of today that I did before I had to leave. So, you know, you see the antenna here, and, you know, you'd be mistaken to think that these are just ropes or something, but they're really not. This is an antenna wire right here. This is a short range antenna used for contacting other ships in the nearby area. And then the cable that runs from the first funnel to the mast, that is the mid-range cable, and that's for farther distances, and I think also for, you know, speaking to other ships that are farther away. But anyway, the main antenna up there, the four of them that go all the way, almost the whole length of the ship, those can reach real far distances. But I don't know for certain that they reached land from across, like, you know, like, let's say they just left Southampton, right? And you know, and they're trying to contact New York. I don't think it reached that far. I think they would have had to send a message to Southampton, and then from Southampton the message was sent to New York. So, I mean, it's hard for, you know, I was reading up a little bit about it, but it's hard to remember that kind of stuff. But anyway, they had like a little officers' promenade here. So literally the officers' quarters are through these windows here, and so they could relax out here and get some air. Yeah. Trying to think if there was anything in particular I wanted to say about this area, but anyway, yeah. And you could see that the four main antenna for the long range comes down to a point, and that literally feeds directly into the Marconi machine. So yeah, Queen Mary had a very, very similar antenna setup. Very similar. I mean, freakishly so. Except Queen Mary's was much larger than Titanic's antenna setup. And it was also more powerful. So with Queen Mary, they really could be in the middle of the Atlantic and, you know, contact contact land from the middle of the Atlantic. Sorry, I'm just reading comments. Is that the telemotor still on? Oh, yes. So the telemotor for the helm is, I believe, still on the deck of the bridge deck of Titanic. It's the thing that still sticks up out of the ground, because I mean that thing was really bolted on. I mean it was on there. So yeah, I think it's like the last thing remaining on the bridge, just because it was the only thing that was so like bolted down. It did not come off when the ship had plummeted through the ocean. Let's see. Tara Farrell says there is evidence of a fire in the Marconi room as the room flooded on the wreck. Scorch marks, etc. Really? I never heard of that before. GTB says, can we see the main kitchen? Unfortunately, the main galley on Titanic is not available in this game. You can't see it. It's all locked up. You can only see like smaller pantries and things in various areas. Tara Farrell says collapsible B is up there, right? I'm pretty sure it is. I think you can only really see it when you're up in the crow's nest. And I showed the crow's nest in the previous live stream today. Okay, so Chris says the maximum range of Titanic's Marconi device was 850 miles. Okay, that makes sense, because I do remember reading that even with the long range signals, they had to wait till they were near as in like 1,000 miles from land before they could send out messages. But with Queen Mary, her devices were so powerful that they could be in the middle of the Atlantic and send out, messages. But yeah, for Titanic, it was powerful for its time. 850 miles is a long distance, especially when you consider the curvature of the Earth. If you believe in such thing. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Yeah, the curvature of the Earth. Sorry, it's my little joke. 850 miles, that's a long distance. So yeah, I mean, when you really consider the curvature of the Earth, it makes me wonder how Queen Mary did it. How Queen Mary got a signal more than 2,000 miles away. I mean, I think the Atlantic between New York to Southampton is about 3,300 miles, I believe. So really, you're 1,800 miles from any kind of, But then again, they did have Greenland and Iceland and stuff that could have picked up signals. I'm thinking too much into this, you guys. I'm such a nerd. All right, so we will go into the main lounge next, or where are we actually? Because there's not much to see up here. This is first class decks, or not decks, cabins. Jeez. I think only the ones at the end are open. So we go in here, and here's an example of one of the cabins on the boat deck. Or wait, promenade. Where are we? This is the promenade, I'm pretty sure. So technically, A deck? Yeah, this is A deck. And this is one of their rooms. So I love the patterns. I love the blue carpet. I'm not a big fan of green, but a wicker chair with holly, and I'm pretty sure that's holly and holly berries on it. So, I mean, gosh, I don't know. Why do I just, why do I spout stuff like that? I don't know if that's holly or holly berries. That's what it looks like to me. But I mean, gosh, it could be grapes. I mean, who knows? Those don't look like grape leaves, though. I'm off on a tangent again. Okay. Anyway, so beautiful, marble. That's amazing. And a little heater for the room. This one looks. This could be an electric heater. Yeah, there's a. Well, it doesn't look like a steam powered heater. Oh yeah, it is electric because you see there's the radiating heat coils. So yeah, that's an electric heater. Because I knew it. I'm like, Titanic didn't just have steam radiators. It had, but you see, this is a steam radiator here, I believe. Yeah, this whole strip on the floor. A single heat pipe would, like a steam pipe would run through there, and the heat coming off of it, I'm pretty sure, would, But yeah, the Titanic had both steam radiators and electric heat radiators. And then, if we go this way, here's a first-class restroom. Is this a ladies' room? It should be a ladies' room because I don't see any urinals. Oh, there we are. Okay, so this is a men's room. All right, so there's the urinals. And then this is a toilet seat cover. Now, what's interesting is back then, after the use of the toilets, they would pull the cover off and then replace it with a clean one, and they'd clean the old cover. So it just made it like a real fast turnover. It's like after someone walked out, the steward would come in, replace the seat, and then that one would be cleaned or something right afterwards. So here's a little notice to passengers. Says, it is respectfully requested that passengers refrain from throwing into the pan any substance likely to choke the pipes or prevent a proper flow of water. Otherwise, serious discomfort to the passengers themselves may be caused, and the closet rendered both disagreeable and useless. Passengers are earnestly desired to flush the pan before leaving. Yeah, pretty funny. So yeah, interesting little thing. Sinks for washing your hands. Little bar soap trays for holding the bar of soap. And then this would have held towels. So this would have been a towel rack. So you would have had folded hand towels on both shelves. And then someone to collect the folded hand towels. I don't know where they stood. They probably stood somewhere. I don't know. Interesting, right? Here's the other room. Almost a mirror identical kind of thing. Can we see out through here? Yeah. There we go. So we can see the forecastle deck of Titanic from here. All right, back to this area. And the promenade is out here. Chilling in the frozen north says, hi Alex, radio-wise, the Queen Mary had voice and transmission capabilities. Yes, I know. I've written all about it on my rmsQMwiki website. So, I mean, there's so much on that website about the Queen Mary. You can learn all about the radio and transmission capabilities on Queen Mary there, and the devices they used and the machinery, and there's a lot of information because we created that website. I'm just doing a little stroll along the promenade for you guys, But we created that website because there's one for Titanic. There's a Titanic wiki, so that way people can learn about Titanic and stuff. And we wanted one for Queen Mary because there was an older site called the Sterling RMPLC site, but it is an older site, and there was stuff that we thought, well, we could put some things. We have things that we could add to it. We have new images and especially new information and stuff that we could add to it. But so that's where we were like, okay, well, we need our own site in order to do that. So yeah. And so yeah, if you check out rmsQMwiki, it is a really cool website, you guys. It's free. There's no ads or anything. And the link is in the description below in case you're curious. And yeah, it is it's just chocked full of information. You could read as much or as little as you want. And what I mean by that is, we didn't design it. Excuse me. We didn't design it so it was only, like if you were curious about the radio transmission equipment, you don't have to open the full page to get some simple information. If you're like, I just want to know a few things, you don't need to read the whole page. There's a summary before you even get to that page. So that's kind of one of the really cool things about it. And yeah, but there is a certain amount where you have to kind of know your way around the ship in order to figure out where to find the radio transmission information. Or you could use the search engine, which is kind of cool. You just type in like radio room or something and the search engine will find it for you. So that's kind of the cool thing about the website is you could either find things if you know where it was on the ship, or you could use the search engine. So yeah, pretty neat stuff. I hope you guys visit that site because it's really new. We're always adding new stuff to it. In fact, just 2 days ago, I created an article about Queen Mary's engines. There's a whole page about the engines on the Queen Mary. So this is my favorite first class room on Titanic. This is the first class lounge. And my, is it beautiful. So I don't know much. I mean, I couldn't even tell you what wood paneling they used in this room. I honestly couldn't. I'm sure you guys could. But I know Titanic didn't use wood paneling in the same way that Queen Mary did. Like, they would have used slightly cheaper woods. Like this is probably mahogany. It's not a cheap wood, but in terms of all the most exotic woods in the world, it's on the cheaper end. So I'm pretty sure this would have been mahogany or something. But what they did do to it was they carved out, intricate carvings and things, which are absolutely lovely, lovely details. Now, Queen Mary didn't do that. They didn't have very many carvings. There's only a few rooms where you see carvings of images. But what they did do for Queen Mary was they chose the most exotic woods in the world to decorate her rooms with. So, I mean, there are some, you can look it up on rmsQMwiki. We have a list of all 56 different types of rare and exotic woods used on the Queen Mary. All in the interior design page. But yeah, this room is absolutely amazing. I love the chandelier too. My goodness. What's really cool is when they had the night version of this game, you could see this all lit up at night. It's just, oh my gosh. I can't wait till they come out with, so this is called Demo 401, but they're coming out with a newer version called Project 401. And in Project 401, there will be different daytime modes for the Titanic. So you'll be able to even see nighttime mode. Wow, this is just beautiful. I wish this is the kind of thing you could take pictures of this and people will think this is a real photo. It doesn't look that much like a game. There are some things, like you look closely at the furniture and you're like, okay, I can see that that's, like video game graphics. But you look at this like this and you would never know. You just wouldn't. And even I'm looking at this in 4K as well. So this game is playing in 4K for me. And I can crouch down and zoom in, and the carpet has individual fibers. Do you see that? Look how beautiful. It's just an amazingly detailed thing. So, yeah. Beautiful room. Oh, if I stand over here, you get like a really wide view of this room. Beautiful view. I love it. I absolutely love it. Who texted me? Oh, okay. All right. Okay, back to the game. Let me see if I have any questions to answer here. GTB says, I've been on the Queen Mary. It has plastic handrails. Yes. Now, before anybody... See, that's one of the things is a lot of people... Okay, so let's just say this academically. No judgments, okay? No judgments, just academically. People will say that Queen Mary is not as luxurious as Titanic. But when you really, really, really study it, Queen Mary is more luxurious than Titanic. Queen Mary has more luxury amenities than Titanic ever did. Queen Mary's, even the materials that Queen Mary was built from were more luxurious materials than Titanic was built from. Remember what I said about this room probably at best had mahogany. I mean, this looks more like oak to me, but it probably at best this room had mahogany walls. But for Queen Mary, they used things like zebrano and peroba and, macassar ebony. I mean, just like crazy exotic woods that were much more hard to acquire than things like mahogany or oak or pine. I mean, even the outdoor decks of Titanic were, those were pine decks. On Queen Mary, they were teak. They were, what kind of teak was it? I can't remember anymore. But it was a certain kind of teak that now today is all extinct. But yeah, it's incredible. So academically speaking, and speaking truthfully and not out of any kind of bias, Queen Mary was more luxurious than Titanic. But people look at things on Queen Mary like her plastic handrails and go, how could that possibly be more luxurious than Titanic? And the thing is that back when Queen Mary was, in service in 1936, when they added those handrails were made of Roanoid, which was a very luxurious plastic, because plastic back then was kind of a new material. It was like a luxury material. Plastic was not like it is today, where it's on everything. It's even in our soda cups and stuff like that. But back then, plastic was a very luxury material. People wore Bakelite and Roanoid plastic for jewelry. It was that luxurious, that material. So the fact that Queen Mary featured Roanoid handrails, people were like, whoa, this is so cool, because, Roanoid was like this big name type of plastic that, people were starting to use for all kinds of things. And it was a miracle material, because Roanoid did not easily melt. It was neither hot nor cold to the touch. It was always a perfect temperature when you touched it. So if you woke up in a cold morning, the handrails and handles for things were not cold. And same thing if you had Roanoid near, let's say, an electric heater, like, you know, you have a Roanoid door handle right next to an electric heater, it would not be extra hot because of the heater. It would be a very comfortable temperature to touch. So the plastics on Queen Mary were miracle materials back then, and it was considered very luxury to have it. And so that's the interesting thing about it. So when people today, you know, they might say like, oh, well, I don't understand how Queen Mary could be more luxurious than Titanic if they had things like plastic for handrails and door handles and stuff like that. And it's like, but that's what it was. It was a luxury material. You know, so an interesting thing too is, well, no, I don't want to get too deep into the wood paneling because I'm not sure people even care as much about wood paneling as I do. I will say that Titanic's wood paneling is more solid, like more solid wood. So these are actual boards that have been carved and shaped into, right? So these are boards, like solid wood. That's what we call solid wood paneling. Now, Queen Mary did not have very much solid wood paneling. All her paneling was veneer. And veneer, once again, we think of veneer and we think of the cheap plastic material that covers cheap furniture to make it look like it's made of solid wood. But that's not what real veneer is. Real veneers are just shaved wood that is shaved so expertly thin that they don't have to use a whole lot of luxury material. So, you know, while Queen Mary did have things like peroba paneling, for instance, it would not have been solid wood peroba. It would have been plywood with a peroba veneer glued to it, and that's because, you know, if they really wanted to panel the whole Queen Mary with solid wood like they did with Titanic, they'd be cutting down whole forests to do it. And they didn't want to do that, obviously, because it's not only expensive, but destroys all of the forests. So instead, everything was done with like a cheap plywood that was fire resistant, and then they glued the veneers to the surface. Someone says oak for Titanic. So yeah, I would agree with that. It looks like oak for the main lounge in Titanic. Pretty cool. Ooh, red wine premiere. So here is, this one is there were two palm courts on Titanic. This is one of them. But this one served during the daytime as a nursery for the children on board Titanic, or at least the first class children, if anything. But that's what this room served as during the daytime. But I think during the busier times, when the other palm court, the one on the starboard side, this one over here, when this one was too, because this one served as a kind of a cafe. If that one was too busy, they'd overflow into this one over here. And but otherwise, this one was used as a nursery during the daytime. Interesting little fun fact. You also notice the exposed light bulbs. While Queen Mary had a lot of plastic because it was kind of considered a luxury material, in these times, electricity was still considered a luxury. And they wanted to show off the electricity on Titanic. So they have a lot of exposed light bulbs because people still thought, you know, light and an abundance of light was very luxurious. So they loved showing off the light bulbs on Titanic. But then, of course, they did have chandeliers like these. Well, I don't think these are technically chandeliers, but they're lamps anyway. But they did have stuff like this. So, because I do talk about exposed light bulbs a lot on Titanic, but Titanic did have covered light fixtures. This is one of those creepy areas that, you know, there's no lights on or anything, so it looks a bit creepy during the daytime. But you see the lights are on this side. Well, some of them, not all of them. But yeah, that corner is just rather creepy without it. But we'll go into the Café Parisien. There's a little French cafe that they operated here on this level. And it looks really nice, honestly. Oh, whoops. Accidentally shifted to the running feature for a second. But yeah, this Café Parisien, I don't think Olympic originally had it. I think it was an afterthought. I think Olympic eventually was like, oh, we'll add this. And then when they built Titanic, they were like, we'll just automatically put this in there because it proved to be successful on Olympic. And this is one of those things that carried over into Queen Mary, because let's not forget, when Queen Mary went into service, she was under the merged company Cunard White Star. So they used ideas from White Star Line and carried them into Queen Mary. And one of those things was creating a garden lounge for third class. So third class had a space that didn't look like this, but it had a similar idea to it, which was, you know, you're in this kind of garden kind of space. But anyway, remember the palm court up above that I was showing you, the palm trees and the exposed light bulbs? The other side of that was called the veranda. And the veranda was one of those things that carried over into Cunard when Cunard merged with White Star. So on Queen Mary, you had the Veranda Grill. And the Veranda Grill on Queen Mary was the most premier restaurant on the ship. I think you guys can hear the frogs in the background. I have my window open, and I live pretty much in a forest, so so you can hear the sounds of the various animals outside. And occasionally, if you hear like a it's like that one, it's the frogs. Okay. Just going through some of the comments. Oh, by the way, this is the a la carte restaurant. So this was kind of a new concept, right? When rich people went to restaurants, it's not like it is today where you can, you know, drop in and get like a plate of something and leave, right? Back then, restaurants were kind of like an event. You went there and you were there for a couple of hours, right? You had multiple courses and things like that. The a la carte restaurant was part of a new trend that was happening, where you could come in and just order a single plate of food, you know, just something right off the menu. I mean, that's what a la carte means right off the cart. Yeah, so you could just come here, and instead of ordering several courses of food, you're just here to order one thing, like a plate of, you know, maybe some lamb with some, you know, mashed potatoes and stuff like that, you know. So that's what this restaurant was for, was just simple food. And this was it was not unique to Titanic, but it was a new trend. It was a new thing in fine dining, was a la carte food. And now it's so common. It's like you can go to any fine dining restaurant today, and instead of getting multiple courses, you can just order like one plate, honestly. So that's pretty cool. Let me just read. But this is one of my favorite rooms on the ship because it's so beautiful. GTB, I was talking about Queen Mary having veneer. Chris says, when do you think when we will all get to see the main galley of RMS Titanic in this exploring game? You'll get to see it when they come out with Project 401. So I was mentioning a little bit earlier that this game is demo 401 because it's a what do you call it? Demonstration. It's a demonstration game, so it's demo 401. But they're coming out with a larger version of this game called Project 401. And that one, they haven't said when it's coming out. And it's because they have, the only people that work with them are volunteers, the people who volunteer any spare time they have to help them work on this thing. So they can't put any like specific date out or anything for when that stuff will happen. But I mean, you know, this version of Demo 401 and the announcement of Project 401 happened almost a year ago. So I really don't know if it's going to happen anytime soon. But that is the hope, is that it does come out rather soon. But yeah, Project 401, you'll pretty much get, you'll get like, a little bit more access than this game gives you. This game gives you 50% of Titanic. 50%. That's pretty big for something that's free. So you get 50% of Titanic in this game. Project 401 will be just a little bit more than that. Not a full 100% though, because the full 100% is being reserved for Titanic Honor and Glory, the official game that they're making with even better graphics than this. It's Titanic Honor and Glory game will be the end-all be-all for anything Titanic, because it'll have everything. It'll be simultaneously a game, a roving experience that you can walk around and stuff, and it'll also simultaneously be like a museum where you walk around and get information and stuff and interact with things. You know, supposedly in Titanic Honor and Glory, you'll be able to rearrange furniture, pick up furniture and move it and stuff like that. You know, you could go to any space aboard the ship, anywhere, even a closet down, you know, in the boiler rooms or something, and you can have access to it. But in Project 401, which I believe will also be free or at least have a very cheap price, in that game, you won't have much more access. I mean, you'll have just a tiny bit more access than this game does. And so I don't know if it will have access to the main galley on Titanic. You might have to wait for Titanic Honor and Glory to come out. And that one is even more detailed than this, because in Titanic Honor and Glory, one of the reasons why this demo that we're looking at never panned out to being the final game is because the ship has shear and camber. The ship bends down towards the center, and then, you know, so there's a very unique shape to everything. And that's really difficult to do in a game and do it accurately, because games generally aren't built that way. In a game, you build each room like this. This will be a separate build, and then they'll slide it into the game. And you can't do that when you have a ship with shear and camber, because nothing will fit together properly. So what they're doing is they're literally rebuilding Titanic from every last steel plate, every last frame, every last steel plate, piece by piece, accurately as they did it in Ireland when Titanic was being built. And you never see that for video games, ever. You never see that. They are really going piece by piece accurately, because that turns out to be the best way to build an accurate game. Something with shear and camber in it, and, you know, especially all the details, lining everything up correctly. So it'll be interesting. just... Chris says it's just different type of grandeur with the two different ships, RMS Titanic and RMS Queen Mary. Yeah. Well, I love, doing comparisons because you can see both the similarities and the differences. And I think people like that. They like to know what's similar and what's different. What deck is this? C deck? So the Strauss suite is here. Most beautiful stateroom cabins aboard Titanic. Absolutely beautiful. Jeffrey says, I think it's comparing Art Deco luxury versus Edwardian luxury to a degree, just different styles. Yeah, just different styles. Veneering is an art. Yep, it certainly is. Chris says, Battleship New Jersey just didn't have any problems finding teak wood for its redecking projects. Really? Didn't have any problem? I doubt that. Because, I mean, teak is not uncommon, but it is not cheap. And most people who buy teak today to make decks or to make furniture out of, they have to use I want to say teak from either Cambodia or what is it? It's an Asian country. Oh, I don't remember what it is, what country it is, but they have to use a certain country's teak because it's like one of the last places in the world where you can get a really hardy teak that still looks nice. But yeah, I love the cherry red wood in this room and the gold to accent it. My goodness. Then you get this big white bedroom right next to it. But it's so beautiful. And then, womp womp. Bare steel bathroom walls. Just, hardly any decoration. You got the sink looks nice. It's a nice marble sink and all that. But that's kind of the shortcomings of Titanic. It's like with Titanic, I like to say it like this. With Titanic, it's beautiful, but the beauty is only where it's at. When you can leave beautiful areas and come to an area like this where the beauty is not there. On Queen Mary, there wasn't much of that. On Queen Mary, it's like almost the entire ship was decorated in some way. Even if it wasn't decoration that you like, it was decorated. So, like on Titanic, you could walk through third-class corridors and see nothing but bare steel and whitewood walls. But on Queen Mary, it wasn't like that. On Queen Mary, even the third-class areas had nice paneling and stuff like that, covered ceilings and all that. You wouldn't see too much of just open spaces. But even like this is a first-class cabin. You can see the steel girders, the beams, but they did put some wood in between them. But this is a first-class room. And you almost would never guess that it was. Almost. So, there's beauty in Titanic, but only where it's at. Oh, right, I was just there. Okay, so if I keep going this way, let me just read some... I can't read from this distance. Oh, sorry. Oh, bumped that again. Sorry, I don't mean to do that. I'm holding my cell phone and trying to read comments as I'm going along. So here's a room for you to look at real quick. Art Deco is wonderfully timeless quality that still has a clean and modern feel, even if it's almost 100 years old. Yes. In fact, Art Deco, the style, Art Deco, turns 100 years old this year, because Art Deco was first featured in a art exhibition in France in 1925. So that's the first time Art Deco was ever seen, was in 1925 at a French architectural exhibition. And so yeah, Art Deco turns 100 years old this year. So why am I so, what in the, okay, there we go. Sorry, the viewing angle changes sometimes. Okay. Here's we'll get to that in a second. But yeah, so yeah, I love Art Deco. It's my favorite style. I mean, I do like these what do you call it? Art revival styles, because that's what pretty much this is. It's not, I mean, people generalize it and call it Edwardian, but I don't think Edwardian really had a style. It was really a culmination of old art styles that were put together in the Edwardian era. So yeah, so I do like these styles, but I don't feel at home. Like, okay, when I look at this area of Titanic, right, it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful, no question. But would I want to live here for a week? You know, is this an environment I feel comfortable in? You know, does it feel like homey and lovely? It's like, no, it's beautiful, but I don't feel like this is a comfortable environment for me to live in. It feels like I'm in someone else's house. But when I look at Queen Mary and I look at the Art Deco interiors, the style is more subdued than this. That's the nature of Art Deco, is it doesn't look too lavish. Queen Mary feels very homey, feels very it's like a house, but a big house. It just, I don't know, it feels comfortable. And that's the idea behind the Queen Mary. That's the whole design philosophy of it, is to make her feel not like a palace, but like a beautiful countryside home in the quote modern era. By quote, I mean the Art Deco era, but that was what was modern for 1936. But yeah, so even though this is absolutely beautiful and lovely, but this feels like someone else's hotel or someone else's mansion. It doesn't feel inviting to me. It feels like, oh, well, you know, do you have your suit and tie? It's like, well, I don't. You know, I don't know if that makes any sense to you guys. I hope it does. But it doesn't mean I can't appreciate how beautiful it is. It is beautiful, for certain. Just like Normandy. Talk about Normandy's style. People go, well, how could you not prefer Normandy over Queen Mary? It's so beautiful. It's like, yeah, it's beautiful, like the Palace of Versailles. It's beautiful. But would I want to live there for a week? No, not really. It doesn't feel like a comfortable environment for me to spend, you know, my time in. Queen Mary feels like a comfortable environment for me. Oh, by the way, this is what I was talking about, how there's little pantries and galleys all over the Titanic like this. And you can see some of them on this game. It's just the main one that service the main restaurants. It's not available in this game. And then you have the maids and valets saloon here. So the maids and the valets would eat here at separate times of day in this specific room. And then this is where other... Oh, wait, no, I'm sorry. I got that mixed up. I'm sorry. This is the Maids and Valets Saloon, and they ate at either different times of day or even just separate tables. They did not mix. And then this room over here was for third-party employees, including the Marconi men. So, like, if they were having their lunch or dinner or something, it would be here. This was their dining room. So, once again, this little room was for the third-party companies, people that did not specifically work under the payroll of White Star Line. So, like, the Marconi people were under the payroll of Marconi. But this was the maids and valets saloon. So the valets, or valet, if you prefer to call them valet, this is where they ate. And this again is third party. These are the personal employees of the individual passengers, not White Star people. So this is not crew. And this was a fancy dining room even for them. Actually, I really like this this wave pattern trim. I never noticed that before, but it's beautiful. I love that. And look, even the ventilation grills. Look how beautiful that is. And this room was, again, for the maids and valets. So they got to eat in luxury. You know, they had their time away from their employers, and they could, you know, they could eat here. So it's a beautiful, beautiful room. All right. What time is it? Oh, 3:50. Sheridan says, I love the sounds of nature playing in the background of videos. That's funny. I didn't insert the sounds of nature. That's just what it sounds like where I live. Turbo McAwesome says, little electric fan seems out of place. Well, you know, sometimes you know, I heard that the Olympic class ships like Titanic, they had ventilation issues. Sometimes, you know, I mean, they obviously had ventilation. You know, you see the ducts every once in a while that expel air, or, you know, whatever. But you get areas like this where there's no ventilation. You look around, there's nothing on the ceilings or anything. There's nowhere in this area where air comes out. These electric heaters do not put out air, they just put out heat. So, not even hot air, it's just literally just radiating heat comes out of them. So, there's no ventilation here. So, an area here would feel a bit stuffy at times because the air is not moving. And the Olympic class ships suffered from that. They had just stagnant air in certain areas. And I mean, I'm not trying to diss the ships. I mean, it's just the technology of the time. You know, there were limits to you know, how much ventilation they could put on a ship like Titanic. There's naturally gonna be areas where the air just doesn't flow that well. But on Queen Mary, that's one of those things that they wanted to make sure didn't happen. So I'm not putting Titanic down. I'm not saying that was, oh, they couldn't do that. It's like, no, I'm just stating fact that Olympic class ships did suffer from that a bit, because they just simply could not ventilate every single area of the ship. So they relied on the ventilation of the rooms. So like you go into a room, and maybe we'll see one. No? What? Okay. Well, anyway, that's why they had fans. That's why they had fans, was because the rooms could get stuffy and not hot, just stuffy. And a fan helps to create an airflow, helps it feel less stuffy, even though, you know, I'm looking for, here we go. Here's some air ventilation ducts. It looks like it goes into these cabins. Okay. One goes through. Ah, there we go. Boop, 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 boop. It looks sealed off, but that would have been an air ventilation duct. So air would come into the cabin, right? And even there too. That looks like one up there. Air comes into the cabin, fills it up. It doesn't necessarily feel, you know, super breezy, but, you know, air comes in. And then you got the doors with these slats they're specifically designed so you can't see into the room. You know, you have your privacy, but it allows air to slide through the door and come out the other end. And sometimes the slats are on the bottom. In fact, even if this top part doesn't have that, they at least have this down here. See? And it's pointed down so you can't, you know, you can't look into the room. But that allows the air to escape the room, and it comes out and ventilates the hallway, or the corridor, as you would call it. So, yeah, in this corridor, you see, there's a ventilation thing. I don't know if that's for air to come down or to go up and out, but they had ways to do that. So these corridors would be ventilated, but you see this room, not. There's no ventilation coming in or out. So it relied on the ambient ventilation coming from the rooms and the hall to come out and spill into here. And so that was how they engineered it. If they said, you know what, we just don't have the capability to ventilate this area, then they would design it so that way airflow coming from the rooms and corridor would spill out into here. And then I'm sure they had, you know, a way to extract old air and stuff. But you can see again, if you ever wonder on Queen Mary or Titanic or Olympic or whatever, you see the slats on the bottom of the doors. Even on Queen Mary to this day, they still have it. That's why. It allows the air to leave the cabins and go out into the corridor. And it's funny because there was one time where this person who really disliked me, was laughing and saying I was wrong. And I'm like, okay, but if there was a way for air to escape a cabin, you would see it. And there isn't. In Queen Mary, if you look around, there's no way for air to leave the cabin other than the front door of the cabin. So you can't just fill a room with air and have it be airtight, or else the pressure will build. The air has to go somewhere. So it's like, I don't know, that person, I was just like, geez, because they were like, haha, you don't know what you're talking about. I'm like, okay, well, tell me where the air escapes. Where does it go? Because there certainly isn't a place in any of the Queen Mary cabins where the air could possibly be sucked out. So you have to have a place for air to go. And air is going to escape through the doors, even on Titanic, escapes the bottom of the door and comes out into the corridor. And probably in the corridors, that's what these were, maybe. I mean, these could have blown air out, but they don't look like that to me. These don't look like air distributors. What do you call them? I forget what you call them. These look like air extractors. The air flows up through that grill and leaves the ship. So that's what it looks like to me. And yeah. I know that's a bit boring. I know some people are like, what? But to me, that's fascinating stuff. Okay, so... Alright, let's get some comments and questions going. There's the purser's desk on the other side. I mean, everybody kind of knows what the purser is. You know, they're basically like the guest services of the ship. Of course, in this is first class. This would be a first class purser. Let's see. Just reading comments. Lisa says, thank you for the live stream today. You're welcome. Sheridan says, I feel like living on Titanic is like living in a museum. It does kind of remind me sometimes of a natural history museum, because they often were built along the same timeline generally, you know, early 1900s kind of thing. So they were designed with these various art revival styles. So I can see that, yeah. I mean, I know some people were saying, oh, but because earlier I was saying, oh, this doesn't feel like home to me. And some people say, oh, it feels like home to me. And fair enough, you know, to each their own. Um, yeah, but just to reiterate what I was saying, like, this is beautiful for sure, absolutely, but it doesn't feel homey to me. It doesn't feel like, oh, I could live here. Like, this is, I'd feel, I don't know. It doesn't feel like that. But it does certainly, in comparison to a modern cruise ship, oh, this feels way more homey and lovely than a modern cruise ship. Like I look at a modern cruise ship and I'm like, this doesn't feel like a place I'd want to sleep. It looks like a hospital, but oh, my phone just decided to restart on its own. That's interesting. I did not make my phone restart. Anyway, yeah, but this feels way more comfortable to me than any modern cruise ship. So I'll give it that. But let's go down to the next level. But well, anyway, let me show you this. Yeah, I think this is the area. Oh, no, I was wrong. Oh, it's on the... Okay, it's the next level down. Okay. Yeah. These are more passenger corridors. Anyway, next level down is D deck, which is where the main first class restaurant is. And again, you'll notice D deck has higher ceilings. And on Queen Mary, the higher ceilings are on R deck. That's where the restaurants are. In fact, that's why they called it R deck, is for the restaurant deck. I don't know why they didn't just keep it as, because it was originally C deck. They could have just said, oh, it's C deck for cuisine, which is the French word for kitchen or eating, food, that kind of thing. Cooking, sorry. I got that mixed up. Cooking and kitchen. That's what cuisine means in French. They could have said it's C deck for cuisine. But they didn't. They're just like, you know what? Let's rename it. Call it R deck for restaurant deck. It's like, what? I don't know how far I can go in here because I think it does kind of make my computer go all wonky sometimes. So far, so good. But they also did church services in this room. As you saw from the movie Titanic, that was accurate. They did church services in here. Oh, I forgot. They have this open window thing here, so you can see how they did things. So during the daytime, the daylight would come through the portholes, right? And it would light up these stained glass. But at nighttime, they had these tube light bulbs. So these are incandescent. They didn't have fluorescent back then. So I know people look at these tubes and they go, "Oh, fluorescent." But no, these were incandescent. So they would have been a very warm yellow amber kind of color. And it would have shined through the windows as like a warm amber color. Yeah. I'm trying to think because even these lights, they're on right now. They look white. But, I mean, I really have a hard time believing they would have been this white on Titanic. Because back then, incandescent was very, very yellow. So I don't know. But then again, I don't want to be the one to challenge the Titanic Honor and Glory team because they've done their research and I really haven't. I know what incandescent bulbs do because through other types of research I've learned that kind of stuff. But on Titanic I haven't done my research, so I'm not going to sit here and be like, well, they got that wrong. There must be some reason why these lights look so white. There must be. There must be something I don't know about it. But I could swear they did not have such white incandescent light back then. It would have been very yellow, almost amber color. My phone is not turning on. Did I? Oh, I must have run out of battery. Okay, that's what happened. I ran out of battery. So I can't see your guys' comments unless I do this. Okay. My phone completely died. That's what happened. I really should get going though, because I've been on this live stream forever. Have I seen the potato room on eDeck? Oh, I'm pretty sure I have. Oh no. Well, let's go see. eDeck, you say? So we're on D. We just go down one. I'm pretty sure we'd have to go into the Scotland Road. Okay, so people say, I think I know what they're talking about. It's by the third class entrance. So we just kind of roll through here. So, because see, there's sacks of potatoes here. But this isn't really a room. This is just, you know, stairs, a stairway, and there's potatoes here. Maybe that's the potato room. But, you know, obviously I can't get there because there's a thing. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't think I've ever been in the potato room. But, I mean, this is the only place I know where there's, like, you know, just sacks of potatoes. But, you know, I showed you guys the crew galley. I'm sorry, the crew galley at the forward end of the ship. And in there they have a pantry just for the crew, which is full of sacks of potatoes. But it's not the only thing that's in the room. They have things like flour and stuff like that in there. So, oh, that's second class forward. So, yeah, that's all I know. Was there anything else? I showed you guys so much of the ship already. Why don't we go to the swimming pool? I just need to figure out my way back into... Oh, that's not it. I always forget my way back into first class. There we go. We'll go to the pool. And then we'll end the stream. We just go down here. We're on F deck. Which, ironically, F deck was also where the second class pool on Queen Mary was. Here's towels. Here's the pool itself. We can go in. Our person wasn't very tall. Must have been just over 5 feet because we're at the eye level's at 5 foot line. So it could have been 5'4", something like that, which I think is an average height for a person at this time. But there's the underwater of the pool. Yeah. Yeah. So that's that. Let me see if there's any other comments. Let's see here. To lighten the dining saloon up, I'm planning to remove the windows on Olympic. Oh, okay, I see what you mean. Interesting. What about the padded room? Oh, we're a long way from that now. No, we weren't near the padded room. We were far from the padded room. Thank you for this. Oh, you're welcome. It would have been Titanic on the layout alone. Cool. Pool is still full of water. Yeah. Everybody makes that joke. I would like to see if the padded room is in the demo. It is. It's in the demo. You have to go up to C deck. And then I'll just take you there. It's kind of not... Oh, wait, hold on. That was the Turkish baths. So, okay. We have to go up to C deck. And then we have to go all the way down the corridor to the end. So this is the ship's hospital. And at the bottom of the stairs is the padded room. See? Padded room. And this is the rest of the hospital, but there's no other open rooms for us to look at. They're all closed. But yeah. The padded room. Okay, so... Chris says, LOL, I'm 6'1". Yeah. Chilling in the Frozen North says, when are you streaming afternoon tea? I don't know. It might be next week. It depends. Usually when I do, I schedule it and you'll see the notification on a Wednesday. Usually if you don't see a notification on a Wednesday for the next Saturday, it means I'm not doing it. I only do it if I know I have the time, because it's on a Saturday, and Saturdays are sometimes a toss-up on whether or not I'll have time to do a tea time, because it does take an hour to set up for tea, and I have to make sure that I'm not doing anything. I'm not, I don't have like other obligations I have to do on a Saturday. Saturdays are days off for some of my family, so they want to do things, and so yeah. But Saturday is also the only day I can really do a tea time, so that's the interesting part about it. And so even today I was thinking about doing a tea time, but I decided not to because I wasn't sure if I would be able to, because I was sick, back on Wednesday when I was deciding it, I was sick. Some people are asking, what is tea time? So sometimes I do it like a literal like afternoon tea service. Like I have a whole set of what do you call it? Cunard china that used to be on the Queen Mary. And so I actually use it, and I have afternoon tea, and we talk. I talk on the camera to people and stuff like that. So it's a really cool thing. You should check it out. If I do it next week, then you should definitely tune in, because I'm literally on camera and we just have conversations about ships and a whole bunch of other stuff. So they're usually really cool. It's a great way to socialize if you don't get to socialize very often. But yeah. So I'll see. If you see a notification on Wednesday, then that means I'll probably be doing it on that Saturday. So, yeah. Anyway, folks, I'm going to end the stream here. Thank you so much for joining me for all of this. It is fun to play this Titanic game. We'll probably do this again in another 2 months or so, because I don't do it that often because people don't tune in. If I did it every week, people would get bored of it. But yeah, so anyway, and yeah, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all later. Bye-bye. How do I end this thing? Stream.